you ask our multinational clients, the importance of several factors in why they choose different locations around the world to expand their investments and so on. And single-mindedly across all jurisdictions, the biggest criteria is skills and availability of skills. So when you look at our particular case, we have a high percentage of technology companies here, and they're the most difficult skills to find globally. So there is a global shortage of skills, and multinationals will increasingly favour those countries where there's good regimes in place to improve the domestic skill availability, but also to attract skills from other international locations, so that the capacity question around being able to find the right type of skill is better being done in a country like Ireland, let's say, than perhaps some other jurisdictions. So that's the number one reason why companies choose this location, and it's a key reason why they would consider any location in terms of where they want to invest or expand their investment. The other point to bear in mind is that tax is important, but there's probably 5 or 6 other factors that are more important. So of course you need to have a efficient corporate structure that allows you sort of maximize your commercial viability, because when you invest overseas, it's high risk. You are mandated to seek a return on that investment from your shareholders. So therefore, if you don't have the skills, you don't have a profit, so you don't have a tax issue to worry about. So more importantly, having people that can not just engage in product development, but also can engage in sales and marketing. A country that can attract a lot of multilingual speakers, because again, Ireland attracts a lot of graduates from other universities around Europe in particular, and they're attracted here because of the high density of tier 1 technology companies, tier 1 pharmaceutical companies, and tier 1 globally financial services companies. So if you're a graduate out of university in Madrid and you want to get some work experience working in LinkedIn or Facebook, you come to Ireland because they're all here. So they use Ireland as a base to export across the European Union. So the largest market for our multinational clients here is Europe. Second largest will be US, and third largest will actually be the UK if you separate out the UK from the rest of Europe. So they use it as a hub, as a gateway to access the European marketplace. If you're an American multinational, for example, and you want to sell a particular software across the European marketplace, you don't want to set up 20 different offices in 20 different locations, which is very expensive, very time consuming, etc., etc. Set up one hub in an Irish location, or could be in we obviously compete with other jurisdictions, but the strategy is to centralize the function so you get greater economies of scale, greater efficiencies, and a faster return on the investment. Well, I think employees have very good rights as employees here. I mean, employment law is very strong. It's of a standard that you would expect from a highly developed Western economy. In the first year of employment, the rights probably favour the employer, but after the first year of employment, employees have their rights improve over time. Therefore, they would be comparable to what you would see in the UK, for example. Very similar. You can't have this worry that the tax could change depending on which political system is in place, and therefore it makes the business case quite difficult to try and sort of finalise because of the uncertainty. So we give certainty on that.
I think the general feeling is, and there's been quite a bit of work done, kind of empirical research done on it, is to say that, sure, low corporation tax is important initially in locating firms to a country, but over time other factors become important. I suppose the fact that we have, we will, after the UK leaves the European Union, we will be the only English-speaking country in the European Union. That's an advantage. But I suppose our education levels are relatively high. The fact that we have relatively flexible workforces, labour markets, the fact that we've had a sustained period of economic growth, those are also very relevant factors as well. So I think the taxation issue, I think the general consensus is the taxation issue becomes less important. When we talk about a flexible labour market, we use these kind of indicators that the likes of the OECD and others compile. They're a combination of various different aspects of the labour market. For instance, I know colleagues use an ease of doing business survey, which I think is the OECD do. And actually what they do is they actually set up a company in the different countries that the index is covered, and they see how easy it is to set up a company in terms of regulations, in terms of tax compliance, etc., and all these issues. And also similarly on the labour market indicators, again, they tend to show us as being on the flexible side, if you like, in terms of in terms of hiring and that. I suppose the degree of unionisation has maybe been declining in Ireland, but I guess that's something that's observed in a lot of different countries. Industrial relations tend to be quite good. We don't tend to, we did have a period where we tend to lose a lot of days due to strikes, but that has, for a variety of reasons, I suppose, fallen over the years. We had a particularly bad phase of industrial relations in the 1970s and the early 1980s, but then kind of a series of national wage agreements were agreed, and the framework for national wage agreements were agreed from mid-1980s onwards. And this was where everybody would come together, employers, groups, trade unions, etc., with the government would come together, and a series of wage agreements would be agreed over maybe a 4 or 5 year period. Now, some people would argue that that was great and that it brought us a lot of industrial harmony. Other people would say that, there was a gradual erosion of competitiveness, and that the wage agreements. Also, part of that package was that in return for showing wage restraint, unions would instead kind of agree to taxation cuts, so that if they agreed to keep wage restraints and to be restrained in terms of their wage aspirations, then that the government would return by reducing personal taxation. But then eventually, when the financial crisis hit, one of the criticisms of our fiscal policy was that our tax base was too narrow, that we had eroded the tax base by giving a lot of taxation cuts. But I think one of the legacies of the wage negotiations and the wage agreements is that we've improved the kind of industrial relations atmosphere in the country.
Ireland has had, or even 20 years, a roller coaster. Very strong growth for 10 or 12 years, up until 2007. Then an extremely deep recession, not as deep as Greece, but not very different. And then a strong recovery, again, like Greece, a very strong recovery over 6 or 7 years. Some people have called this a miracle. I think a miracle is a little strong. It's been very good, very positive. Now, unemployment is almost gone. The creation of new jobs has been very strong. So there's been a very positive development, but not a miracle is too strong, and there are still, as always, some problems, such as homelessness. Ireland, surprisingly, given how much the economy has been on this roller coaster, income inequality over 30 years has been very, very stable in Ireland, even during the recession and the boom. Now Ireland is around the middle in European countries in terms of income inequality as measured by the Gini coefficient. So Ireland is around the middle. It's more equal than many southern European countries, but less equal than the Nordic countries. But the interesting, I think, one of the most interesting things is how stable it's been. Some countries, as you say, like the United Kingdom and the US, over 30 or 40 years have seen an increase in income inequality. Ireland has been very stable. But I think what as one of the very beneficial things, one of the very positive things in Ireland over 20 or 30 years has been education. Now, if you look at the adult population, people over 25, half of people over 25 have a third level qualification, and that is the highest in Europe. There's no other country with a higher proportion of adults who have third level qualifications. and that has moved up very, very quickly over 30 years. So I think many people who a generation ago might have, whose parents may not have been involved in the service industry, may not have been involved in higher paying jobs, have acquired third level qualifications and moved up. So I would suspect that is the most important reason for maintaining the very stable level of income inequality over 4 decades here.